Yo, 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 Big Kish back up in here, y'all. We about to go over this reaction playlist. Get it on up out of here, out with the old and with the new. There's a video that's been sitting up in there I wanted to go over how Like That changed hip-hop forever. I'm going to leave a link in the description, and shout out to King Benny Garcia. Y'all know I don't like holding y'all. Without further ado, let's get it.
Keep bringing this energy back, bro.
The most celebrated rapper of the last decade. Just diss the other two most celebrated rappers of the last decade.
I like that. I like that.
He ain't playing with none of y'all. Why you need me to say that? Listen.
He ain't playing with none of y'all. Why y'all even look? Hey, look how he like, what up? I ain't playing with nobody. What's good? We gotta rewind that part.
I like that.
He ain't playing with none of y'all. Why you need me to say that? Listen to the verse.
I hope Drake gets in the booth and starts rapping, bro.
He gonna drop something. Whether it's subliminal, he gonna drop something.
None of you niggas is beating Kendrick being friendly. Let me just be the one to tell y'all.
There's something about hip-hop rivalries that is really unmatched. Hip-hop, and therefore the competitive spirit of hip-hop, is something that brings out the best of people. And yet, as we walked into 2024, hip-hop beef was something that we really hadn't seen in a while. But to be fair, not only had hip-hop not seen the competitive spirit, it barely saw anything positive, as walking into 2024, there were a lot of people that were convinced that hip-hop as a genre was dead or dying. Especially because it seemed as though the big three, the three rappers that hip-hop had revolved around over the last decade and a half, were heading towards retirement. J. Cole was hyping up the retirement tour for his final album. Drake was talking about taking a step back from music for a couple of years. And then Kendrick Lamar, we didn't even know.
Or did they know that Dot was gonna come out and smash him?
If Kendrick Lamar was retired or not. And as hip-hop fans scrambled to see what was the next step in the genre, Metro Boomin and Future were preparing to drop an album. And the record was bound to be good, considering the fact that both rappers were coming off of pretty good albums, especially when you take into account that the market was dry. And because of that, it's safe to say that on March 22nd of 2024, all eyes were on Metro Boomin and Future to see what they could deliver on. Every streamer...
Hold up, was that Little Meech on the couch?
Metro Boomin and Future to see what they could deliver on. Every streamer, every journalist, every hip-hop fan, everybody in hip-hop was looking at Future and Metro Boomin and what We Don't Trust You was gonna look like. And as the listening parties came through, the record continually started to pick up hype. Through the first 5 tracks, We Don't Trust You already had a star-studded cast with people like The Weeknd, Travis Scott, and Playboi Carti featuring on the record. However, despite the fact that these are some of the heaviest hitters in hip-hop and music as a whole, these features are also kind of the norm when it comes to the big hip-hop albums. So even though all eyes were on Future and Metro, it felt like the record wasn't necessarily having the punch that it should have. Like, of course, there were good tracks here, but not necessarily the smash hit that you would expect from these two. And then track 6 happened. From the very beginning of this track, you know that this is gonna be something special. Like, honestly, this might be the most iconic beat of the decade so far, or at least top 5 at the very least. And then Future comes in on the track and it feels pretty good. Like, honestly, Future and Metro on this track are just clicking. They are firing on all cylinders and it feels like the track is building and building. And then the moment that changed hip-hop.
They were firing on all cylinders.
Forever happens.
Shooter, I hope they came with 3 switches. I crash out like
Oh my gosh.
48 seconds. That's how long the Kendrick Lamar feature is on Like That. It took Kendrick Lamar 48 seconds to change the trajectory of hip-hop forever. There's just something about this moment.
Hey, look, when you look at it like that, that's wild. It took Kendrick Lamar 48 seconds. But you got to think about that. It took him 48 seconds to change the whole trajectory of hip hop. One man having all that power in 48 seconds changed everything. That's something to meditate off of. Bro, that's a lot of power. 48 seconds changed the trajectory of hip hop. That's deep, bro. That's powerful.
Moment that is almost irreplicable is the combination of the fact that Kendrick Lamar might have legitimately have been retired at this moment, and the fact that this song was a hit even without Kendrick Lamar. The fact that this was a surprise feature, but as you probably know, it's not the surprise feature that people remember.
It would have been a hit, but I would say it would have came and gone. It would have, it would have did good. It did its numbers, but if Dot wasn't on there, it would have just came and left like all the other songs. You know what I mean? It wouldn't have, this wouldn't have been held up as much as, if while he was on there. It wouldn't.
Remember this song for. And honestly, if Kendrick Lamar would have just had a regular verse, no disses, no anything, this still would have been the cherry on top of what would have been a classic.
Oh yeah,
but it's what he
out.
says
He
within those
out.
48 seconds that really make this feature as impactful as it is. Because after years of constant comparisons and dissing each other, Kendrick Lamar finally comes out and declares himself the king of the big three. And he doesn't do this subliminally. He doesn't even do this in the haha, this is friendly competition way. He means what he's saying. And it is clear from this point out that Kendrick Lamar wants the crown. Now, before we continue with this video, I am putting a lot of effort into the channel lately, and I would appreciate if you guys could show support by hitting the subscribe button. You don't have to, I'm not obliging you to, but we're very close to 51K, and I would appreciate it. Anyways, back to the video. Upon listening to this verse, everybody had the same reaction, basically. It was a level of excitement and joy that hip-hop really hadn't seen in years.
Yeah.
And for the first time in a very long time, hip-hop was finally...
It was very much needed, man. So much stuff was being forced on us over the years. We getting tricked. We thinking we like songs, but we really don't. It's all we got. You know what I'm saying? But some people they just rock with their old playlists from, but all this stuff that's being forced on us, this was very much needed.
Having those barbershop talks back. It became this constant debate of who would out-rap who between Kendrick, Cole, and Drake. It was a time and place where hip-hop became hip-hop again. And what ended up happening is that this song essentially became an instant classic, skyrocketing all the way to the #1 spot on Billboard's Hot 100. I think that for most hip-hop fans, you really had to go deep into your brain to think about the last time that this had happened. Like, I think the last hip-hop song, at least with this type of hype, would have been Sicko Mode at this point. But it's important to note that Sicko Mode came out in 2018 in the middle of like hip-hop's hottest year probably ever. Like that came out in the middle of the driest hip-hop era in a very long time. But of course, that only meant one thing. All this hype, all this attention meant that Drake and J. Cole had to cook up a response. We didn't know when, we didn't know how, we just knew that Drake and Cole had to reply. There was just no way you couldn't. And luckily for us, they both replied. The first to reply was J. Cole, who came out with a whole mixtape just 2 weeks after the fact, and well, let's just say that his response was lackluster. Obviously not necessarily the content within the
that shit's trash, boy. This shit sound like like Manny Fresh got with one of his aunts or something like that. Like that, it wasn't right. That was not right, bro.
The track, because 7-minute drill is actually pretty cool. It definitely was supposed to be like a
that beat don't sound. It just sound like an old Hot Boys joint, like them little sounds in there, like the block is that shit wasn't hitting, boy.
Warning shot, or kind of like a warm-up to whatever Kendrick and Cole would have done afterwards. But then 3 days later, J. Cole would apologize, and it definitely seemed very weird to us fans in the moment. It would almost seem that J. Cole was scared of Kendrick Lamar's aura or some shit. But with the power of hindsight in mind, I definitely understand.
I ain't gonna lie to y'all, I moved in a way that I feel spiritually feel bad on me. Like I try to jab my nigga back, and I try to keep it friendly, but at the end of the day, when I listen to it and when it comes out and
hey, what Joe Budden said in the beginning? He's not gonna be friendly with you niggas. Yeah, nah. He said I try to like jab back and be friendly with him. Like, yo, we still friends, right? Nah, Dot like, Nah, nigga.
I see the talk, that shit don't sit right with my spirit.
But before we can talk about that, let's talk about how
Respect
Drake
it, though.
responded. Drake's response would come a little later with the release of Push-Ups, a track that Drake definitely could have had like the big hype moment if he had released it properly. But for those who don't remember, this track like leaked, and then for a couple of days we didn't know if it was like AI or some shit, and then Drake dropped it somewhere, but it wasn't on Spotify, so it kind of lost a lot of the hype that it could have had. But I think for an initial shot of a diss track, this is a pretty good diss track.
Say drop, you better drop and give them 50.
This is probably the strongest that Drake ever came off, because it definitely seemed like he had Kendrick Lamar cornered, right? Because
That
even
beat
though
go
Kendrick
crazy.
Lamar is good enough lyrically to hold his own, public perception wise, Drake kind of had the big advantage. And coming off of Push-Ups, you had to wonder what could Kendrick do to actually hurt Drake. I'm sure you already know about the beef, so let's just briefly go over how everything went down. Kendrick Lamar would drop Euphoria, then a few days later he would drop 616 in LA, and that very same night Drake would respond with Meet the Grams. Not Meet the Grams, Family Matters.
Kendrick just opened his mouth. Someone go hand him a Grammy.
Kendrick would respond with Meet the Grams just a few minutes later, then Not Like Us a few days later, and then Drake would try to reply with The Hard Part 6, ultimately failing to beat out Kendrick Lamar in this battle.
Hey, this set it off. This set it off. I can't even hear the beginning of this without thinking that it's the Super Bowl one. You really about to do it?
And while all of this was happening, J. Cole was in the beach chilling, proving himself to be the real.
Hey, look, at least J. Cole still got his career. At least he could drop something and people still be like, oh, okay, all right, yeah, Cole doing it. But if Drake drops something, hey, what Joe Budden said? He said that Nokia joint is out there fighting for his career, fighting for his life.
Real winner all along. Ah, I'm just kidding.
I want to perform their favorite song, but you know they love to sue.
What song?
Yeah, that song.
Obviously, Kendrick Lamar is the guy that people look at as the winner. Like, the man won 5 Grammys off of Not Like Us. Do you know how crazy that is? That is more Grammys than Drake has in his whole career. And you know, Grammys are Grammys and they don't really account for anything, but in the heart of the people, Kendrick Lamar won, alright? That's as simple as I can put it. Kendrick Lamar is basically the main character of hip-hop right now, just off the strength of this beef. As for Drake, it's yet to be determined what's gonna be of his career. And at this point, we're just waiting to see where Drizzy Drake ends up. On a real note, this is like my last video on the beef. Like, unless something crazy happens, this is the last time I'm tackling it, because, you know, it's been a year, and I think it's time to move on. Not gonna lie.
No, not this time, Ninja. We following through. We got to get the recaps. We got to get the round 2s, the round 3s, the round 4s. Nah, we keeping this going. It's true. Yeah, we gotta keep this going. Long as Drake keep taking selfies, he keep cutting his hair, regrowing it, braiding it, cutting it again, and yeah, we gonna keep on covering this. So y'all stay tuned. I'm gonna leave a link in the description. Y'all let me know what y'all think, man. Big Kish signing out. I'm going, y'all.